Today, I want to share with you some lessons from collaborative innovation projects I managed and participated in over the past 7 years that I've been involved in open innovation. Most of the lessons are coming from projects when we organized collaboration between the customer coming from the industry and different universities coming from all over the world, and customers were also from all the different countries. And all these lessons are based on real experiences and situations that I encountered. I hope these lessons will be helpful for anyone who wants to organize or already is involved in collaborative innovation projects. I hope it would be helpful to innovation managers, project facilitators, and of course, top managers of companies. Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Lisa and I've been working for years on organizing collaborative university competitions for world well-known companies to solve their extreme innovation challenges, and now I continue my journey with the goal to foster innovation by helping different parties of the innovation process collaborate and co-create. On this channel, I explore collaboration projects for innovation management, share my experience in managing these projects and processes, and uncover strategies for making collaboration efforts more effective. So let's start with the very first lesson. In short-term projects, timing might be crucial. I conducted a short-term university collaborative project once. It was just a couple of weeks long, and it was very difficult to find university teams to participate in this project because it took place in May, which is often the end of the academic year in many countries, and everyone is busy at that time, both professors and students. So I received many interested, but I can join this time responses from the teams. So if you want to conduct a collaborative research project, a short-term collaborative research project with universities, and I'm talking specifically about universities here, sometimes it is also related to organizations, pay attention to when you want to start. So of course we're talking about May. We also can talk about the summertime, and especially in Europe, summertime is kind of sacred time. Everyone is going on vacation, especially in August. So collaborating with European, even companies, not only universities, but companies at that time won't be productive. So you would want to postpone your project for a later time period. And I'm talking mostly about short-term projects because in long-term ones, this is rarely an issue, because if the project is taking 1 year long, 2 years, it might be okay. You just might want to postpone important meetings and do not expect any reports and materials from the teams during Christmas, Chinese New Year, then vacation seasons too. And it's just good to keep in mind when you plan all the different activities, Obviously, if we're talking about different countries, they have their own holidays, they have their own vacations. So a lot depends also on where your partner is coming from. And of course, I believe that business is more flexible in that sense than academia. So again, it is mostly related to universities, of course. It's a small and it might be quite an obvious lesson, but sometimes we forget about these things. Lesson number 2, stick to the process. If you gather many smart people in the room, and it's good if you have a room and it's not like an online call, you will of course get some interesting results. The question is whether these results will solve the problem that you have. And another question is whether those are the best options that you can get out of all these bright minds and their co-creation. That's why, despite being a big fan of breaking the rules, and I'm a big fan of that, I always say that in collaborative innovation projects, in open innovation projects, we need the process and we need to follow it. We need to have it. Again, I had this experience. I participated in a very chaotic process. Let's be real, if we are talking about like the whole career, including my marketing experience, my marketing background, it was not one chaotic process. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, because teams might easily miss deadlines. they might not provide what you're looking for, which is obviously a waste of time and money for you. And if we're talking about collaborative innovation projects and innovation projects in general, we all know that it is quite difficult to predict results, and we want to mitigate all the risks. We want to have as little risks as possible. So for that, the process is essential. If you have the process, there are more chances that you will get the result that you're looking for. Because if you don't have it, of course, there might be some well-organized teams that will show something to you, but is it really the best you can get out of co-creation? I don't think so. At my company, Disruptive, that organizes scientific and technological collaborative projects and hackathons, we have well-defined, structured processes. Of course, they are flexible. Of course, these models that we use, we adapt them for the needs of each project, of each client. However, once they are defined, we stick to all the necessary steps, and we require everyone, including our clients and teams, to follow them. Obviously, there might be some situations when you need to be flexible and change the process, but if you have a plan, it's always easier to improvise in the given conditions. The next lesson that I want to mention is the earlier you reveal important terms, the better. For example, when we work with our clients, we offer them obtaining IP rights for the results of the project, which means that they can file a patent at the end of the process. Not everyone is happy about this fact. I'm talking about participants, of course. Not all universities, not all teams would agree on that. Then, of course, not everyone would be happy about the amount of money they would get at the end or the deadlines. And we need to make sure that we let all the teams, all the collaborative partners that we have, learn about these important terms as early in the process as possible. Unfortunately, I had a situation before when we started working with the university, but they were unable to continue participating in the project because a legal agreement didn't work for them. And here I'm specifically talking about intellectual property rights. These points they were not happy about, they could not agree on these points. So we just wasted our time working together when we were unable to do it in the first place, that it was impossible, you know. Since then, I always mention all these important details along with the challenge, criteria, process that we use, how much money the team gets in the very first message I send when I invite them to participate in the project. And you know, it doesn't really matter how much I want this team, how much I want them to get on board for the project, or how much the team wants to work on this project. If we cannot agree on these important terms, on legal terms, on, again, timing and money, it's just not going to happen. So we don't want to waste our time. Another lesson is managing the client is as important as managing collaboration partners. Now, I've been working mostly with the model of open innovation projects when we have a client, a company that needs to solve a challenge, and teams that do their part, do the research and provide solutions. We, from our side, mostly manage the process, drive it, and during the process we manage teams, we coach them, we help them co-create, help them understand what is expected, and so on. However, it is also extremely important to manage the client, even if they don't participate in the research activities directly and just mostly make decisions. And first of all, it is extremely important to help the client come up with the right challenge for the project, as it might be a challenge itself, to come up and also to formulate it in the right way. It is important to help them, it is important to help the company define appropriate criteria for the result. It is important to manage expectations and help decision-making team members to understand why we do what we do, why the process is built the way it is built. It is important to work with their cognitive biases. It is important to provide them with explicit information about the project, which of course we always do. However, It is just important to work with them and constantly be in touch to hear their opinion and to hear their concerns and work with these concerns. Despite the fact we expect solutions from our collaboration partners, the client's decision-making team plays a crucial role in the project, and they also define the success of it and whether we will be able to get solutions that the client expects us to get. The next lesson is connected to meetings. And meetings are important, but not when there are too many of them. When you conduct a project that involves collaboration partners you've never worked with before, you may feel a need to have more meetings to track progress, have conversations about what to improve, how it is going on. You need to constantly be in touch with teams. Well, don't do that, don't go this way, At least do not expect from all the partners to constantly prepare reports on their work all the time, We tried it. I cannot say it was a huge mistake, but it certainly added weight to the shoulder of our teams, and it's not worth it. I mean, we of course have meetings from time to time to find solutions to certain challenges that, come along the way, but these meetings, they should be targeted. They should be conducted when it's really necessary, and maybe you should not invite everyone, Of course, I'm not talking about having these big important reviews that have to be scheduled anyway when you invite everyone, when everyone updates about their progress. And yes, we do have such reviews through the process a couple of times. It is important to have them. But with smaller meetings, just don't overdo it, really. Let your partners do their work. The next lesson, you should agree on all the necessary tests and trials at the beginning of the project. Despite the fact that all innovation projects have more or less the same steps, some of these steps are quite different depending on what product we're working on. Testing, for example, testing is an essential part of any innovation project. Otherwise, how would you know that the technology performs the way it is supposed to perform, right? But yeah, different innovations require different tests and trials, and different companies may want to perform these different tests and trials. And it's better to discuss all these specific tests and trials at the very beginning of the project. Because first of all, it might significantly influence the timeframes of the project. If you haven't planned the tests before, and some of them might take months to perform, imagine how it will change the dynamics of the project when all of a sudden you introduce a new part which wasn't announced to collaboration partners before. However, it's not even the biggest issue here. The real problem might lie in expectations from the project outcome. Obviously, there are different technology readiness levels, or TRLs. And for example, at the end of the process, we expect to get a solution of TRL 4. So the solution should be validated in a laboratory environment. It isn't supposed to go through pilot plant tests and tested in an environment that is as close to realistic as possible. And if we plan only lab tests and collaboration partners know about it, they know they don't need to push their solution further. But if the company then suggests doing validation in a realistic environment, everyone might be disappointed because they didn't plan, they didn't expect this to happen. So it's crucial to discuss all those things at the beginning of the project before even starting it. We need to define all those tests, because if the company wants to go through more trials, for example, meaning they expect a certain TRL, we might need to adjust requirements, and collaboration partners, they have to know about it. And the process, of course, we need to adjust the process. And the last lesson for today, always have learning sessions after the project is over. In the past, we hadn't always had learning sessions when the project was completed, And though some areas of improvement were pretty obvious, I'm quite sure we have missed some important moments. Learning sessions should be conducted about the process itself, about the organizational and management problems we faced, and how they were solved or not solved. Not everything can be fixed. We can't control 100% of what is happening, but some parts of the process can and should be improved. Open innovation projects, collaborative research projects are still a lot about people and management. It's not mathematics or physics. We don't have one single formula for success, but I really believe in improvement, and improvement can be achieved only when we analyze, when we process the results, what was done, what was not done, and what we can do in the future to make things better. And it's also really great to gather feedback from your research partners, collaboration partners, see which concerns they had and what was positive about their experience. It will help you get better results in the future, in your future open innovation projects. Okay, those were just some lessons I learned over years working on open innovation, collaborative innovation projects. There are obviously more lessons and more are waiting for me, because when you grow, when you improve, when you do something, you always have things to learn from. It's a never-ending process. And of course, I'd be happy to share more lessons, more maybe mistakes that I've made in the next video. I hope this video was a little bit useful to you. Like, those are quite small and sometimes obvious things, but we often forget about them, especially because open innovation projects are so different from what you do internally. So yeah, I just wish you good luck with any innovation project that you are having or are about to have, and have a good one. See you in the next video. Bye!